It's the middle of May. In the Northeast, really, the full-blown spring. The trees are leafing out, and we're going to continue our series with backyard ecology. Obviously, now we'll talk about the backyard in the springtime. First, let me make you understand that this is not going to be Dr. Ted's Lawn and Garden program. There's already an overkill of that in the media anyways. Basically, what I want to talk to you about today is for people like myself and many of you watching, is how to have your home and your yard blend in with the environment around you. In other words, how to coexist with the organisms, enjoy the organisms without doing harm to them or to yourself for that matter. The setting we're in today, outside my house, in the middle of a woods dominated by hemlock, pine, and oak, is a perfect example of talking about rural ecology, and in this case, obviously, forest ecology. How do we blend in? Well, one of the things you'll notice is that there's a lawn here. Now, most people think of lawns as being very much an urban thing. Why would anybody living out in the woods want to have a lawn or want to have the hassle of a lawn? Well, first, let me explain to you that it is not a perfect lawn, and it never will be a perfect lawn. Because when you live in an area where you have an awful lot of trees and rocks and very little good soil, you're never going to have a perfect lawn. That's not the idea. Why have a lawn? Well, there's a couple of really good reasons. One is very strongly an ecological reason. A lawn in a forest area creates what is known as edge effect. That is, you have two major habitats or two major communities that meet together on the edge of your lawn. This is known as an ecotone, creates this edge effect that I mentioned, and it provides wildlife actually with two habitats to coexist in. For example, you have an awful lot of birds in the area that fly to your lawn to get insects from the lawn or seeds from the lawn, but they have the forest for cover. That's also true with other organisms such as deer that'll come out of the forest to feed on the lawn, hopefully not your shrubbery. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And other types of organisms that I'll talk about in a little while. So this edge effect or ecotone is beneficial to the wildlife, and it's also beneficial to you because you get a chance to enjoy and watch the wildlife in the area surrounding your house. Second is a reason that's a little more serious, and it's very much more recent. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the summer ecology, backyard ecology lecture. But by putting a significant area around your home into grass, you're not eliminating, but you're cutting down on the infestation of ticks. If this area that surrounds me were left brushy, there'd be a much greater incidence of ticks. And we can all deal with ticks, but there's one of very significance now, a new type of tick that's carrying a very disastrous disease called Lyme disease. Again, we'll talk more about that in the summer, exactly what Lyme disease is, how you can go about minimizing the chances of contracting Lyme disease, keeping tick levels down around your house. But at this point, I do want to mention it as being another good reason to have a buffer zone between you and the forest, a mowed one, not a brushy one. What about other types of vegetation around the house? Well, I think one of the main things you want to do is to blend in with the environment around you. You're not planting suburbia. You're planting, as I mentioned, a rural, even a sylvan area. So you want to have the types of vegetation, one, that provide a nice natural backdrop to the forest around you, and two, the type of vegetation that wildlife are not apt to decimate. And of course, in this area, as throughout the Northeast, we're talking primarily about deer. If you plant vegetation that deer like, succulents, other types, you can pretty well assume they're going to wipe you out. I have deer that come here late afternoon, early evening, every day looking around for something to eat. That's why there's a lawn here. Types of vegetation such as hollies, junipers, even rhododendron are not preferred food. Now, there's absolutely no guarantee that anything you plant won't be consumed by deer if they're very hungry. This is especially true during the winter months, late winter, early spring, when food is of main concern to them for survival. But those types of shrubs that I just mentioned are ones that normally you can grow without too much damage from deer devastation. Other things that you might want to do in your yard during the summer is provide bird feeding. Now you'll find that most books involved with bird feeding, or ornithologists that talk about it, ecologists, mention it's not necessary to feed during the summer. And it isn't. But you got to be a little bit selfish. You're putting food out there in the summer, not so much for the birds, but for you. Because you'll get different kinds of birds coming in the summer. There won't be the numbers that there are in the winter, but the birds will be here, and it gives you a chance to enjoy them. You're not holding a gun to their head. You're not making them come to eat. But if you provide, and by the way, I scale mine way back from 6 feeders to 2. If you provide feed for them, you might get some pleasant surprises in terms of the birds that come to the feeders during this time of the year. I would be very careful if I were you, especially if you are getting water from a well near your house. I would be very careful about using sprays, insecticides, or any kind of lawn treatment that involves chemicals. It's all right to fertilize your lawn. There's nothing wrong with that. It'll be thicker, it'll be more luxurious, and more attractive. But when you live out in a forest area, don't worry about whether you have some broadleafs in your lawn. Learn to live with them. Just mow them down along with the rest of the grass, because the only way to get them is to add chemicals to the soil. Not only are you hurting the invertebrate population, the worm, annelid population, you may also be affecting birds, and you may be affecting your own drinking water supply. This also goes to, or also applies to any of the shrubs or flowers that you have around there. Don't grow something that is highly susceptible to insect attack, because if it is, you're going to want to spray. And again, ultimately you're going to be doing damage to the wildlife around you, and quite possibly doing damage to yourself as well. So the key really for sylvan or rural backyard ecology is keep it natural. Plant things that you like, plant things that attract wildlife. That way you can enjoy your lawn, your shrubs, and so can the birds and the deer and the squirrels and other animals around you.